Howdy mates, how are we all doing today? It is Sunday, March 13th, 2022. I'm over visiting the Lemon Bay Environmental Park based in Old Englewood. And when I say Old Englewood, I'm referring to basically the northern region of the town. So we're basically in the southern tip of Sarasota County. I know that sounds confusing. I say northern, southern. Bottom line is, we're still based in Englewood. That's all you really need to know. But the Lemon Bay Environmental Park actually borders with the Lemon Bay itself, which is one of the most well-known estuaries in this region of Florida. And, it's a perfectly sunny day, and the weather is, it's a little chillier, because we just recently had a cold front that moved in yesterday, so it really cooled down quite a bit. But, with that being said, the type of habitat that we're really standing in was at one point a mesic pine flatwood, but now it's actually in the process of becoming a hardwood hammock, because now we're starting to see some development of live oak, for instance. But one of the most prevalent types of conifers that you will see out here are, of course, the slash pine. And surprisingly, even in this region of Florida, you will also find the longleaf pine. Now, the tricky part is both species look very similar to each other in terms of the bark, especially. But there are indeed some differences to look for. For instance, this slash pine, I can tell that's a slash pine because it's only maybe 50, 60 feet. Whereas a longleaf pine, when it reaches full maturity, it can reach up to 80 feet in height. Now, a lot of you may well know that with conifers, they don't produce deciduous leaves, with the exception of the bald cypress. Instead, conifers reproduce by a different means. They use cones, such as right here. Right here. So the cones, in a sense, are like they're kind of like the male. They're like the female part of a cone. So then the pollen has that ability to establish itself into the cone, because the pollen is, of course, plant sperm. No way to sugarcoat that. And it uses these cones as a means of reproducing. So once it has a chance to establish into the ground, it will then allow a new conifer to rise. Now, another characteristic about conifers is this. Conifers all produce something called needles, or some people actually refer to it as pine straw, especially if it's in a bundle. Now, as you can see, these pine needles, they're actually in a pair. So there's two of them. And the end right here, the end right here is something called a fascicle. Now, since it's only in a pair, this is actually a slash pine. Now, based on, without me having a ruler, it's bound to be, this is probably about 9 or 10 inches long. And that's the thing. The needles in a slash pine tend to be shorter than that of, say, a longleaf pine, where they can reach up to 12 to 14 inches. And usually with longleaf pine, the needles are in bundles of 3. So that's another way to know for certain what particular pine you're looking at. Now, in this particular section, I highly doubt that we will really have a chance to find a longleaf pine bundle, but then we can be lucky. Yeah, nope, that's a pair. Or like we could try looking, but that would take quite some time. But it's a neat thing. Basically, conifers are in a group of plants called gymnosperms. So a gymnosperm is basically just a fancy way of saying trees that don't have fruits or flowers. Instead, they just use their cones as a means of reproducing. So it doesn't go through the typical process of pollination like our angiosperms do. Now, I know I'm throwing like a lot of these botanical terms at you guys. Forgive me for those not familiar. But the angiosperm, on the other hand, actually refers to a plant that produces fruit and flowers too. So like when you see, like down here for instance, you may think of something like an orange tree, right? They produce flowers, they get pollinated, and then they move on to another tree to allow for reproduction. Because it's the fruit that is the actual female part of a tree, or of an angiosperm. So that's something to always look for. But the bottom line is, all conifers are gymnosperms, and they're evergreens, so they don't lose their leaves. Instead, they produce needles. And oftentimes the needles are immediately regrown. They don't go for a period of time without them. So that's a remarkable characteristic when it comes to conifers. So alright you guys, thanks for watching, and once again, Journey on a Journey is outwards. Take care folks, see ya.